Hello, and welcome to finally the beginning of Book Two, The Quest, chapters 1 through 5. Um, yeah, here we are at last. Let's see where to begin. So, of course, we have Matthias being lost in the woods, being found by the squirrel, and the squirrel bringing him back to Redwall Abbey. Um, so this is the introduction to Silent Sam. Uh, I kind of forgotten that Sam was silent. Uh, I'd forgotten that. So yeah. Uh, very, very cute, of course, squirrel character, but definitely has a personality to him, and he's more than just kind of cute. He's, intelligent. He's um, quick. So it's not just a cute factor, which I kind of like. It's kind of this more charming, slightly intelligent kind of cute instead of just being cute because he's a baby. Um, you- um, so yeah, I like Sam in this introduction. And then so definitely um will be part of the story going forward, and there will be some revelations about the character later. But yeah. So Sam's cute, fun little character. Nothing too special, but definitely enjoyable little introduction. Um, then of course we have pretty much Clooney's fall, the failure to uh, mount the wall, and Cheese Thief killing Scragg. So yeah, so it's interesting. I was thinking about this. It's kind of funny that Cheese Thief, and then we're gonna have Chickenhound in chapter uh, 5. That they have names that I'm like, that sounds a little anachronistic. There was even an anachronistic reference, which was really strange, about a scorched tiger. So yeah, I kind of funny that like there's still kind of, again, as I mentioned, kind of early onset world building of Redwall and how everything isn't quite established. Because Chickenhound, it's like, what? There's no chickens later, as far as I know. No farmyards, at least farms that aren't being run by animals, and they don't have chickens. So, yeah, so this is another example of like a name that, and Cheesy being named where it's kind of like a little anachronistic, where she's still trying to figure out the world of Redwall. So yeah, kind of funny there. Um, so yeah, I don't think, um, yeah, Brian Jakes doesn't have another proof that giant Brian Jakes doesn't have full grasp of the world. And there's even like Chickenhound says something about selling selling, the phrase is something about selling chickens back their own eggs and stealing whiskers from a farm dog. And it's like, so those things never come up again. So it's really funny. Um, in the entirety of the series, really. So, yeah, so we have Clooney, fall, um, and Scragg's death, of course. So this is the first, like, um, again, Cheese Thief, is kind of the first, like, in-house murder of intentional murder of of within the evil that I kind of talked about in one of the previous things about kind of the infighting and stuff. So Chief becomes kind of the initial and kind of standard for this, and we're gonna see it quite a few times. And it is really kind of like Scragg isn't a good guy, but like considering how well he's that he doesn't come across as too crazed. He's just a soldier, and Cheese Thief comes across just so much worse. It's kind of like it really is. Despite again that being infighting, like death isn't fun for anybody. It doesn't matter. So it's actually kind of brutal death in a way. Uh, so yeah, it's actually I think I remember that death and being disturbed by it pretty early on in the series. Like that was kind of like the first time where it was another place where it was very clear that the series was quite a bit darker than your average kind of fantasy series overall. Um, of course, there's plenty of dark fantasy even for more kids later, but considering this again, mid 80s, this is kind of the beginning of that. And so, yeah, definitely a very brutal death. Um, and then we have, Clooney's fall from grace. I like that image of just Constance appearing at the wall to knock over the plank in the first place. Just Constance appearing is such a wonderful image after kind of like once again it just shows how much of a cool, awesome character is, and she just gives it a mighty kick, and they all go flying. Really cool there. Uh, so yeah, yeah, just another kind of once again emphasis on kind of that Badger strength early on in the series, and it's only going to get, of course, bigger from here, and there's going to be some stuff where you're going to go, oh man, and so it's really really cool. So yeah, we've this is Constance's third biggest moment. I also like, and I went the discovery of the plank by Methuselah. At least the plan and noticing that something was up with the tree. I really like that. It really, once again, kind of highlights how much Methuselah sees things differently than everybody else. And we're gonna get a similar character in Mario, where it's like age and experience, um, kind of go hand in hand. They don't always, and we're gonna see counterexample of that at certain points. But Brian Jakes, I think, definitely has a respect for age and experience, and you can really see just how um, Methuselah is the ultimate kind of example of age experience and just learning to pay attention to the small things, which I'm not very good at, actually. I'm not very good at that. And so I actually like that. I like someone who kind of just contrasts so crazily with the rest of the world that often is just so unobservant. And that's why I think another reason why Methuselah, as we'll talk about the first hidden clue to finding uh, Martin's sword, uh, just why that dynamic between Methuselah and Matthias works is because, again, another way that Methuselah sees Matthias as a god person, as a mouse that actually pays attention, a mouse that actually has a brain on his head on his shoulders, unlike so many of the other characters, even Mortimer. Mortimer kind of he's more empathetic. We can see this in kind of his refusal to, go after the enemy after they retreated, his even reluctance at first to be like Constance is pounding the fact that basically Clooney is going to return, just accept it, and Mortimer kind of like reluctantly heeds his friend's advice, not so much reluctantly, but just kind of like that another sigh of relief that things aren't quite what the way he wants them to. And so I think Abbot Mortimer is somewhat blind to the kind of like necessities of it, but he's not so blind as to at least say, well, I don't understand this, but let me give it over to others like Matthias, Ambrose, and Constance to, and Winifred and Formal to kind of uh, lead. I'm so at least Mortimer has at least the knowledge that he doesn't understand. He's not arrogant, but he definitely is at least personally um, blind to it a bit, and so yeah, and so that's the and so then that gets contrasted by Matthias and Methuselah, who very much are paying attention, very much um, in the know of things, even more than say even Constance, because Constance is pretty much like she has certainty and she pretty much knows what she wants, but and she's not stupid, but she definitely doesn't see beyond what she also her conclusions already are, and Methuselah and Matthias kind of don't have that, and so you have that wonderful. But you can see just how much, despite them being of sound mind, how much they also clash too. Like Matthias is still very much the young scoundrel who doesn't under young whip who doesn't understand everything and isn't able to see everything, and Methuselah's kind of like catch up sort of thing. But you could even tell that he is starting to slow down a bit too with and how Matthias notices something he doesn't. So there's a nice back and forth between them of them noticing something and uh, the other one not noticing it. Methuselah noticing the I am that is Matthias, and Matthias recognizing the fourth step in between and finding the helping to find the secret entrance. I really like that as kind of like just and also what they both kind of notice is very different, and how Methuselah I think is very much in tune with more of a spiritual angle. Um, Matthias, it's not like he doesn't have it at all, but he's still very young to it, and so um, Methuselah is willing to kind of break the kind of conventions of like hey, maybe Martin is alive kind of thing in a sense, and so he's been around enough, and he kind of has a sense of things more otherworldly than Matthias, and so it makes sense that he would see the connection between Martin and Matthias before Matthias himself would. Um, Meanwhile, Matthias has kind of like a very direct correlation brain, and so he definitely then is able to once he kind of gets the what where Methuselah is going, he can then practically think it out in his brain and stuff. So and then him finding the middle step. So I like that. Again, I also like we get more of the moles. This is kind of like the first big scene for the moles in Redwall. Um, and it's really nice because we really get a sense that moles are more than just kind of like loyalty and kind of like you really get a sense of how much the moles have a sense of things where they have both a certain wisdom and non experience in certain matters, but they're also strong. They may not understand everything, and maybe they're lacking knowledge in kind of like the the really deep things, but the idea with moles is kind of like just the practical nature. Like they have a very much way that they're able to step back from the details and at least see the bigger picture that sometimes when you get into nitty gritties that a lot of other animals aren't ready willing to see because they act too quickly or or instinct or because they're overthinking things, and moles tend to see the bigger picture of things. So it's really nice while also having that strong gruffness that allows them to do heavy, meaningful work. They're very much like uh, the Redwall answer to dwarves. which I really like. Um, so so they're the ones able to lift out and get the step out, and they they have that they have this very clear understanding of also like foundations are what matter. I think that's kind of the idea of moles is like because they start with what's the basics in order to build a building, right? They're not into all the fancy stuff, but they understand like, hey, you need a cornerstone, you need the the practical way of getting stone into a certain shape to support the rest of the structure. And that's kind of the mole perspective, I think, is the connection between their practical work side and the way they just think about things in general. Uh, so yeah, um, let's see, was there anything else on the Redwall side that I wanted to talk about? I again, I also one of the things I also like about Brian Shakes and like he understands this with older uh folk characters, and we'll see this pop up again with a lot of old characters. Is that old doesn't necessarily mean you're just like this creepy old guy, and let me just mutter some wisdom. And there is that, but the giddiness of discovering something is in Methuselah, that twinkling of discovery of events. Like he gets excited about things. Like somehow like again, Brian Dix is very good at not coming across like old people just sit around and think wise thoughts. It's like no, they want to enjoy that part of their life again, that younger, giddier side of themselves. At times, it's not like that isn't bound by age and experience to where it's used needlessly, but that just that old folk can get wonderfully enjoy joyous about all sorts of stuff as well. They don't stay in this perpetual stoic state. Um, so that's something I really like about Brian Jakes with older characters, and we can see it in the beginning here with Methuselah. Let's see. Oh, and then so then finally we have um, what is it? Uh, Sela and Chickenhound's a major introduction to the series. Um, uh, this will be important way later. We'll get to it eventually, but the, no matter how brief it may seem their time is, and we'll get to it, their appearance in this first book, it's going to have giant ramifications. So I really like that. Really like what's going to be revealed later. But in terms of now, what I like is a couple things. One is I do like the fact that Clooney just realizes this is all a bunch of hooey that Sela, but he recognizes like Sela's talents. He's just like, why do I have to go through all the mumbo jumbo side of it as well? So I like that Clooney recognizes like, hey, I'd be dead, but also who does this fox think she is? She makes herself out to be more than she is, and that's part of her trick. But but it's with anyone with obvious eyes, it's pretty easy. And so they're I like how they're not really smart enough for Clooney. For some of the others, Steele and Chickenhound are clearly smarter, but I like how with Clooney there's no pulling the wool over his eyes regarding Sela. And I like how I also like how Sela just doesn't. She's like Clooney in a sense, but in a sense that she really just doesn't care. Um, she just wants what she wants, and that's kind of the big thing that a lot of um, Redwall villains are is they just want what they want. And Sela doesn't just really care how she gets it. She gets what she wants from it. Um, and and I like just the kind of the blatant nature of that. And I like how with Chickenhound, like we just see it's like this generational thing. I think what Chickenhound kind of represents is just this can so easily be carried on to the next generation. Like that 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 and we're gonna see it just how much her carefree attitude affects her son um at some point. There's something that's gonna be said later by Chickenhound. It's gonna reveal just how much Sela has kind of corrupted his mindset, where how selfish she is makes him selfish. And so, yeah, I think that's really fascinating. Again, that generational thing of just you pass on what you know, and that's kind of I think a lot of the point we see, and maybe that's why we have the contrast, why we have Seal and Chickenhound scene immediately after the Matthias and Methuselah scene, as we see the contrast, the generational connection, and how one is positive and the other is negative. So, yeah, there we are. So there's chapters 1 through 5. Uh, they've discovered stairs. Woohoo! Stairs underneath Redwall, which is always fun going into mysterious places. And we have Chickenhound running off to the Abbey for information. And so we end on kind of a double cliffhanger from both sides. And like, and also Will, like, again, kind of like how Clooney is aware of this, but the question is, we're going to see how much he is or is not aware and what it, and that tension between Sela and Clooney will become even more evident. So there we are. All right. Next time we'll be in chapters 6 through 10, I guess, or 6 through 11. We'll see. All right. Um, if you have any thoughts about what I said, be sure to leave comments down below and spark up a conversation about kind of anything in this episode. Or if you have some thoughts on something coming up, just be careful of spoilers. All right, thanks. And continue to like, listen, subscribe, and share the Badgers and Bells podcast. Bye.